start right away. The secrecy of bank deposits in the Philippines. Okay, so your concern as the Sipali reviewee is to be able to explain the law on secrecy of bank deposits. Okay, so our focus will actually be on these particular portions of the law, the purpose of secrecy of bank deposits, what do we mean by deposits, okay, as to what kind of deposits are covered by the law, what are prohibited or what are the prohibited acts under the law, and exceptions under this general rule on prohibited acts, and of course, what do we mean by garnishment and how is this garnishment all about? Okay, so let's start with this preliminary question. Can the government pry into one's bank accounts? Pwede bang makialam ang gobyerno? Okay. We may actually change the subject here and say, can any person actually pry into one's bank accounts? Can the bank employees, can the bank officers, pry into one's bank accounts? Okay? So whatever subject that is, okay, anong pamalit mo dito sa government nito, can it be possible that a person pry into one's bank accounts? With that at the back of our mind, okay, let me introduce to you the different secrecy laws in the Philippines if we are to talk about bank deposits. Okay, so of course we have the general law, okay, and this is RA 1405. We take a look at our presentation aid, okay, 1955 legislation pa po ito. So this is the Secrecy of Bank Deposits Act, RA 1405. Okay, we also have another. Okay, ito po yung Foreign Currency Deposit Act, so FCDA. Okay, it's RA 6426 and it is a 1974 legislation. We also have another more, okay, which is RA 6848, a 1990 legislation, and it is all about, okay, the secrecy of bank deposits in Islamic banks. Okay, so again, as early as now, you know that hindi lang pala 1405 ang meron tayo. Meron din tayong 6426, meron din tayong 6848. Okay? Ang 1405 lang po, it talks about peso deposits. Okay? Peso deposit accounts. While in 6426, okay, foreign currency, okay, deposit accounts. Sa Islamic banks, regardless of whether it is peso deposit or foreign currency, basta nasa Islamic banks daw siya, 6848 naman daw mag-apply. Okay? So please make know this time this clear distinction. And ang trick kasi ng mga questions, minsan, you only know about 1405 when in fact, okay, the facts of the problem that is asked of you would actually require a combination, an application of the law, a combination of both 1405 and 6426. Or it may be a problem which will actually focus on the application of 6426 and not really 1405. So, yun po yung ating bantayan sa mga MCQ problem type questions na maaaring tanungin sa inyo. Okay? So, moving on. Let's focus on ito, secrecy of peso bank deposits in the Philippines. Okay, so this is 1405, that's the governing law. Again, 1955 legislation po siya. Okay. Ano po yung purpose ng 1405? The law itself provided for two purposes. The first one being, okay, to encourage people to deposit in banking institutions. Okay, so sabi, tayo daw, kung meron tayong pera, i-deposito daw natin sa mga banks, banking institutions. Another reason set out under the law is to discourage private hoarding of cash. Okay, huwag mong itago sa bahay lang. Okay, to help the proper circulation of money in the country and aid in economic development. Okay, so one positive, one, okay, structured in a negative way. But of course, the rationale behind it is to aid in economic development. Okay? So, thus owing to this piece of legislation, yung ating RA 1405, the confidentiality of bank deposits, particularly peso bank deposits, remain to be a basic state policy in the Philippines. Okay? let me just mention in the second rationale of the law is all about hoarding. Okay, ano ba yung ibig sabihin ng private hoarding nito? Private hoarding is defined as, or hoarding for that matter is defined as, to accumulate as much of something, dito pera, as one can, as when fearing a shortage. Okay? Nangyari itong private hoarding. Remember, it's 1405, 1955 legislation, kapanahunan po ng mga Hapon. Kaya andyan yung fear na magkukulang ng pera. Kaya ang ginawa ng mga tao, okay, personal decision is to keep it nasa mga bayong-bayong hanggang sa nawala na po ng value yung mga pera. Okay, so private hoarding. Why the law? Why do we have 1405? What does the law seek to protect or seek to promote? Okay, tingnan natin po yung slide na ito. Sabi, the right to privacy or financial privacy at that. Our focus here is financial privacy. Another is to aid in the efficiency of the banking system as the money saved will be properly utilized to authorize loans to decrease government costs. Okay, take note po sa part 1 natin sa usaping ano ba yung function ng banks sa ekonomiya ng Pilipinas. Okay, it really is very helpful in making the economy progressive. Okay, so dahil sa mga pautang natin sa mga bangko, technically yung mga deposits natin sa mga bangko, ito yung pinapatakbo ng bangko para mapalago. Paano niya ito pinapalago? Pinapautang din. Okay? So it's just really what you have learned in your economic subjects. Okay? So to avoid bank run and default. Okay. Coverage. Ano po yung coverage ng ating protection na natatanggap under 1405? Sabi dito, the examination and inquiry or looking into all deposits of whatever nature with banks or banking institutions. So ito po yung mga deposits covered ha. All deposits of whatever nature with what? With banks and banking institutions, including, hindi lang po itong all deposits, kundi pati investment in bonds by the government or investment in bonds by any of its political subdivisions and instrumentalities. So this is what? Ano ang pinoprotektahan? Ano ang tinitingnan? Okay. Does not, okay, with that topic of what does it cover, isipin na muna natin kaagad-agad, ano yung hindi siya covered, ano yung wala doon sa all deposits of whatever nature at even investments in bonds. Hindi niya sakop ang safety deposit boxes, hindi din niya sakop ang mga trust funds at ang mga money market placements. Hindi sakop ng proteksyon ng 1405 itong mga enumeration na nakikita nyo dito. Okay? So, remember these two slides, very important. Let's continue sa Prohibited Acts under Section 2 of the law. Absolute confidentiality in nature of the following. Okay, ito yung rationale behind this Prohibited Act under Section 2. So, may not be examined, inquired, or looked into by sino? By any person? By government officials? By government bureaus or offices? Sila lang po ba? Hindi po. Kasi, okay, dito din po, kino-continue niya. Okay, Section 3 is the another prohibited act. Okay, the disclosure by unlawful disclosure by any official of any banking institution or any employee of any banking institution, okay, to disclose to any unauthorized person of any information concerning said deposit. So, na-expand. So, dalawa yung prohibited act natin under Section 2. Sino yung nagko-commit noon? Malamang mag-commit noon. At sa Section 3, this is another prohibited act. At sino ang pwedeng mag-commit nitong Section 3 prohibition? Okay, so 2 and 3. So, again, the prohibited acts, okay, we've talked about what are the prohibited acts under Section 2 and Section 3. We have mentioned who are the persons liable under Section 2 and Section 3 also. And moreover, okay, best say moreover, under Section 5 of the same law, sabi doon, ini-extend din po sinong pwede pang maging liable. Any person who commits a violation of any of the provisions of the law. So, kahit sinong tao, basta kung numit in Section 2 at Section 3. Di ba? Yan po yan. So, this is the general rule. Ito po yung protection na binibigay ng ating batas. Ito yung financial privacy natin na sinasabi. The general rule is that, okay, it's absolutely confidential yung ating peso deposits. Okay? So, ilang beses ba naulit yung absolute confidentiality dito sa slide na ito. But this, again, is the general rule. So, ang iniisip natin ngayon is, are there any instances when this absolute confidentiality of bank deposits, okay, are waived? Okay, or are there any instances when the confidentiality of the bank deposits that we have is not absolute? Kailan siya hindi nagiging absolute? Okay? Okay, so let's take a look at some. So, under the law itself, so ibig sabihin sa mismong 1405, okay, the very law that gave us the general law also provided for exceptions. At ito po yung 4 na exceptions na makikita natin sa 1405 mismo. Sabi doon, upon written permission, or it could be consent in writing by the depositor. Okay? So when we talk about consent, okay, may permiso, for it to be valid, it should be made knowingly, voluntarily, and what? With sufficient awareness of the relevant circumstances and the likely consequences of the depositor giving his permission or written consent. Alam niya, para saan ba yung consent ko? Okay? And we have also here impeachment cases, sabi dyan. So, in cases of impeachment, okay, so, sino ba mga impeachable officers natin under the Constitution? So, if we can remember, we have the President, we have the Vice President, we have members of the Supreme Court. Okay, the impeachment cases that we have in the Philippines, most often than not, had for their subject yung mga members po ng ating Supreme Court. So, who else are impeachable officers? Members of the constitutional commissions under the Constitution, such as, ano ba mga constitutional commissions natin? COA. Okay? So, that's one. And we have 2 more constitutional commissions. Ano pa? Sino pa ang mga impeachable officers natin? I think also the Ombudsman. Okay? So, sila po yung mga posibleng maging pwedeng i-impeach. Okay? Yan. So, under the provision of the law, okay, anong kaso sila pwedeng i-impeach? Okay, so, for culpable violation of the Constitution, for treason, for bribery, for graft and corruption, or other high crimes, sabi doon, other high crimes, or betrayal of public trust. Okay, kung maalala natin mga impeachment cases sa Pilipinas, usually ang catch-all dyan, betrayal of public trust. So where do we see this? Impeachable officers, and for what cause? Okay, that is actually found under the Constitution, particularly Section 2 of Article 11, if I'm not mistaken. Okay, so may pangatlo pa dito sa 1405, sabi, okay, by order of a competent court. Okay, so dapat may order coming from a competent court in cases of bribery and dereliction of duty, nino, ng mga public officials. Okay, so limited po dito, no, sa ating number 3. Okay, so dereliction of duty of public officials by order of a competent court. Okay, so sabi pa din dyan, in cases where their subject matter of litigation is the money invested or deposited. So in cases where the money deposited or invested is the subject matter of the litigation. So what comes to mind is a old case, okay, Mellon Bank. It's Mellon Bank versus Magsino of 1990. Sabi doon, the money deposited should be the very thing in dispute. So yung mismong peso deposit account na pinag-uusapan natin must be the subject matter of the litigation. So 1, 2, 3, 4. The next question is this one. Are these exceptions that are provided under 1405 exclusive? Meaning, ito lang po ba ang pwedeng maging exception sa general rule natin on absolute confidentiality? Okay? Of course, we know that the answer here is no. There are other sources of exceptions to the general rule. Okay? So, usually, ito yung paboritong tinatanong, no? Yung exceptions to the general rule bukod sa 1405. Or you can devise your mnemonic here dito para maalala ninyo yung 1405 exceptions, no? Permission, impeachment, okay, bribery and dereliction of duty is subject matter of litigation. Ano yung dadagdag natin dito? Okay. So, ito yung pwede pa natin idagdag. Okay. And these are exceptions under other laws. Okay. Bukod sa 1405, may iba pang mga batas tayo sa Pilipinas na nagbibigay ng exceptions. Kasi nga, ang 1405 is very old, 1955. So, marami ng legislations. Ano na bang taon ngayon? 2020, no? That actually gave to us listing of exceptions to the general rule on absolute confidentiality. So, tingnan natin. Ano mga ito? Number 5, sabi dito, order of a competent court, again, it's by virtue of an order of a competent court in cases involving unexplained wealth under the Anti-Graft and Corrupt Practices Act. Yan po yung special law. Okay, so this is also known as RA 3019, Republic Act 3019. Okay, so bank deposits of a public official, okay, his spouse, it extends to his spouse and unmarried children, may be taken into consideration in the enforcement of particularly Section 8 of the Anti-Graft and Corrupt Practices Act of the Philippines. Okay? So, ito, number 6 naman. Ano ito number 6 na to? Ang source natin na batas is what? The NIRC of 1997 as amended by Train. Di ba? So, the CIR, the Commissioner of Internal Revenue, is authorized to inquire into bank deposit accounts. For what purpose? May isang purpose na naka-mention dito sa slide natin, no? Okay? So, what other purposes? Okay, as we can remember our NIRC on this matter, in relation to a taxpayer's application for tax compromise on his tax liability. So, dahil sa taxpayer humihingi ng pabor, no? So, malamang hingin yan ng gobyerno ng kanyang permiso para i-waive yung absolute confidentiality para ma-compute talaga natin ng tama kung ano ba yung basis ng ayong compromise. What else? Ito ay nabigay dito, determination of a decedent's gross estate for purposes, of course, of the computation of the estate tax liability. Are there any exceptions under the NIRC or related laws? Meron po. Okay. Request for tax information of a specific taxpayer made by, this is pursuant to a tax treaty. This is a foreign tax authority pursuant to a tax treaty. Okay, so tax information regarding our taxpayers, okay, pursuant to tax treaty. Those are exceptions under the NIRC and the related laws on the matter. Ano pa? Okay. Mention dito sa number 7. Anong ating batas po dito? It's the AMLA, which is actually part 2 of our discussion on banking laws, no? So the Anti-Money Laundering Council may be authorized to examine and inquire into bank deposits or investments with banks or non-bank financial institutions. Okay. Concerning what? Okay. Dapat ito, bago natin pag-usapan to, there are two, again, if we can remember our part 2 discussion on AMLA, it can be with court order when there is probable cause that deposits or investments are related to an unlawful activity or a money laundering offense. Pwede din without need of court order when probable cause exists that a particular deposit or investment with any banking institution is related to certain predicate crimes. Yung dalawa nating category, yung with at without court order. Okay, so balikan nyo yung ating discussion sa part 2. Yan. So, exception din yan sa ating K1405. Dagdag natin dito sa number 8, report of banks to the Anti-Money Laundering Council of covered and or suspicious transactions. Also, by virtue of AMLA. Ano pa po? Marami pa. Sabi pa dito, okay, disclosure to the Treasurer of the Philippines for dormant deposits for at least 10 years under UBA, Unclaimed Balances Act. We will be discussing this in the latter portion of part 3. Okay, so an exception provided under UBA. Okay, exception provided for under Human Security Act of 2007 in proper terrorism cases. Ano pa? Number 11, during special or general examination of a bank as authorized by the Monetary Board to investigate bank fraud or a serious irregularity. So, nawala sa syllabus natin sa banking laws yung NCBA o the New Central Bank Act. It is under the NCBA that we see this, okay, exception to the 1405 absolute confidentiality requirement of peso deposit. Meron pa tayo dito, no? So talagang mahaba yung listahan natin ng exceptions under jurisprudence, and we will be mentioning the cases in a while on this matter of exceptions. Meron pa po ba tayong hindi nababanggit? Okay. Just to talk about NCBA or the new Central Bank Act, sabi doon, does Bangko Sentral is authorized to inquire into or examine bank deposits or investments in the course of a periodic or special examination to ensure compliance with AMLA. So related talaga yung mga batas natin on banking laws, no? In accordance with the rule of examination of the Bangko Sentral. Okay? So Republic Act 9160 as amended is the basis. Also pursuant to a conduct of annual testing, which is limited to the determination of the existence and true identity of the owners of numbered accounts. So hindi naman talaga po bawal ang numbered accounts, only that it's subject to this particular power that our Bangko Sentral has, still under RA 9160. Okay, ano pa po? Okay, so simply also in relation to Act 35, Republic Act 3591 as amended, PDIC, the Philippine Deposit Insurance Commission and the Bangko Sentral may inquire into bank deposits whether there is a finding of unsafe or unsound banking practice. Okay? Bakit PDIC? Bakit Bangko Sentral? Kasi sila yung regulatory bodies whenever we talk about banks. So that's part of their powers. Okay? So the Court of Appeals, designated as a special court, may issue an order authorizing law enforcement officers to examine and gather information on the deposits. Okay? Ni-extend to by virtue, pag usaping Court of Appeals, pwede nyo extend not only on deposits but also to placements, to trust accounts, assets and records in a bank or financial institution in connection with anti-terrorism case. Ito yung kanina sa human security. So, yung Human Security Act of 2007, hindi lang test deposits yan. Pwede ding mga placements, pwedeng money market placements. That's what I mean by that. Trust accounts, which are not really covered by 1405, I mean. So, mas broad yung scope ng Human Security Act. Okay, so they are exceptions to 1405. Okay, so this is what I was mentioning a while back, jurisprudence. So, this is the case of Ejercito versus Sandigan Bayan of 2006. Sabi dito, plunder is analogous to bribery. Okay. So, sa anti-graft and corruption, diba? Kasi ang na-mention doon ay bribery. So, isama na natin ang plunder, sabi sa jurisprudence. So, the exception in the law that is applicable in bribery also applies to plunder. Okay, the overt or the criminal acts as described under Section 1D of Republic Act number 7080 would make similarity between plunder and bribery even more pronounced, since bribery is essentially included among these criminal acts. Okay? So, pwedeng basis yan para, again, i-waive natin yung absolute confidentiality ng peso deposits. So, it happened in the impeachment case of then, President Estrada. Philippine National Bank versus Gantayco of 1965, very old case, no? Cases of unexplained wealth are similar to cases of bribery or dereliction of duty, and no reason is seen why these two classes of cases cannot be accepted from the rule-making bank depositors, confidential. And after taking a look at our long list of exceptions, di ba? Tinatanong natin ngayon ay, are these rules and exceptions that we have just discussed, applicable to both, not only peso deposits, but also extends to foreign deposits? Okay, so hanging question muna natin yun. Let's now take a look. Pero bago natin sagutin yung hanging question na yun, tingnan muna natin to. Okay? So, sabi dito, on the part of the auditor, on the audit of a particular bank's financial statements, does it mean that the auditor can no longer inquire into or examine bank deposits because of the law on secrecy? Okay. Pagkukulan nyo nga ito ng ilang segundo. Pinagbabawalan na natin yung mga auditor to look into or examine bank deposits simply because we have a law that says that, okay, 1405 on peso deposits are absolutely confidential, to look into it and examine it. Okay, parang it doesn't make sense, no? Ano ba trabaho ng auditor? Okay, so ang sagot, sabi dito, not necessarily. Okay, Presidential Decree number 1792 of 1981, amending Republic Act 1405 of 1955, states that during a regular audit of a bank by an independent auditor, the auditor may inquire, examine, or look into deposits, provided that the following conditions are, okay, satisfied. So may mga conditions po tayo. The examination is for audit purposes only. That the results of the examination shall be for the exclusive use of the bank. Okay? So tingnan niyo po yung kasagutan dito. So it may partake of an exception to the general rule under these following conditions. Yan yung sinasabi ng ating KPD 1792. What are the sanctions for violations of the bank secrecy law? Okay, sabi, to either or both of the following, okay, upon the discretion of the court. So, mamimili po si court, okay, whether to impose imprisonment, kulong, of not more than 5 years and or fine of not more than 20,000. Okay? So, ito po yung pamimilian. Pwedeng dalawa, pwedeng isa lang, sa dalawang ito. At the discretion of the court. Okay? I think there is an MCQ on this particular slide. I hope you recognize it. Okay. What do you mean by dereliction of duty? Okay. When a person has willfully refused to perform his duties or to follow a given order, or has incapacitated himself in such a way that he cannot perform his duties. So, saan natin nakikita itong dereliction of duty as possible grounds for what? Sa anti-graft and corrupt practices, no? Public officials po ang concern dito. And so, another slide, another question, set of question, tingnan natin ito under AMLA. So, continuation ito ng ating part 2. Tingnan natin kung maalala pa natin to. So, AMLA, so the Anti-Money Laundering Act, allows the ex parte without notice. Ano bang ibig sabihin po ng ex parte, ma'am? Ito yung ibig sabihin niya, without notice to the concerned individual, ex parte. So, usually, in a case, there are two parties, yes, without informing the other one. Yan, ginawa ito. Examination of a person's bank accounts can be allowed under the following exceptions. Okay, so napag-aralin natin yan. Tingnan natin issue number 1. Is an ex parte examination of a person's bank account violative of a person's constitutional rights, namely the right to due process and the right to privacy, financial privacy. Ito tinatanong dito. Yung ex parte yan, okay, because AMLA allows it. Is it a violation of the law? Is it a violation of a bigger or a more fundamental law? Okay. Another issue raised would be, is the examination of a personal bank account violative of, okay, client attorney privilege, that is sacrosanct in the legal profession, or of confidentiality clauses in contracts. AMLA, itong power na ito, ex parte examination. So, are the rules and the exceptions, okay, that we have read or that we have learned in AMLA, okay, violative of these confidentiality clauses? Hindi nga, no? So again, AMLA is a more recent legislation, and we can actually explain it in such a way that because it's the more recent intent of the legislation, which are actually mandated by law to represent the interests of the populace, okay, it would be what? Allowable exceptions to the general rule. May reason yan. May rationale yung batas kung bakit niya pinayagan. And of course, pagbabalikan nyo yung importance po ng batas na AMLA, okay, I think you will appreciate it now why it was made an exception to 1405, the general law on secrecy of bank peso deposit accounts. Okay? So, balikan natin ang hanging question natin kanina. Sagutin na natin. Are the rules and exceptions discussed that we have just discussed under 1405 applicable to not only peso deposits but also to foreign deposits? Foreign deposits po. Yan yung kakaibig sa tanong. Ang mag-a-apply po na batas ay 6426, yung 1974 legislation natin, FCDA. Okay, FCDA talks about the secrecy of foreign currency bank deposits in the Philippines. Yes, so an example natin dito, euro deposit accounts, okay, dollar deposit accounts, diba? Yan. So, what are foreign currency deposits? So, these refer to funds in foreign currencies which are accepted and held by authorized banks in the regular course of business, with the obligation to return an equivalent amount to the owner thereof with or without interest. Yan. So, tingnan nyo kung yung mga bangko nyo ay nag-a-allow na mag-open ka ng foreign current deposit accounts at anong klaseng foreign current deposit accounts yung kanilang pinapayagan na i-open mo kung ina-allow man nila. Kasi others would not really open euro. Okay? Mga piling-pili yung nag-a-open. But of course, when we talk about US dollar deposit accounts, yes. Okay? Walang problema doon. Yan. So, what are this? Okay. Yung mga foreign currency deposits that we have with Philippine banks. Okay. It also extends to foreign currency deposits in offshore banking units. So, hindi lang Philippine banks, pati offshore banking units, OBUs. I hope you were able to discuss what are offshore banking units in your taxation subjects or taxation review. Okay. So, under FCDA, they also enjoy and related laws in the Philippines. Yung mga foreign currency deposits natin, they enjoy tax exemptions. They include the interest and all other income or earnings of such deposits, whether the depositor is a resident or non-resident. Okay? This is one reason why these are benefits. Okay? These are ways by which people are encouraged to deposit in foreign currency accounts. Kasi mayroong itong add-on na hindi mo makikita doon sa peso deposits. Di ba, remember yung peso deposits, they are actually taxable, di ba? Ito hindi, tax exempt. Yan. Bakit? Bakit? Kasi nga, more ang mag-deposit, mag-open ng foreign currency, yung mas maraming foreign currency din ang nasa sa banks natin na nagsisirculate. Yan. Yan. To encourage it. Sino po ito? Okay, remember our then Chief Justice who was actually impeached? Hindi naman natapos yung impeachment case, no? Pero he voluntarily went he voluntarily gave up his position. But take note that RA 6426, which is the secrecy of foreign deposit accounts in focus, sabi niya, was intended to encourage depositors from foreign lenders and investors. In the cases that he decided when he was sitting as Chief Justice or even a member of the Supreme Court, okay, he decided many cases on the matter. At ito yung kanyang nilalagay sa kanya, okay, as the ponente, ito yung mga nilalagay sa kanya mga cases decided on the matter. Yung rationale ng law, yung mismong law na ginamit against him when he was made subject of an impeachment case, no? So the irony, I am talking about the irony behind his life story as the magistrate, as one of the magistrate of the Supreme Court, no? Yan. The rationale of the law. Yan. Do we observe absolute confidentiality? Yes. But this time of foreign currency deposits, is it really absolutely confidential? Yan tanong. Okay, ito, binibilang natin, dalawa lang lumabas yung absolute confidential, no? Okay, does it say that it's not really absolutely confidential? Yeah, not really. Okay, yes, it is really absolutely confidential. At if you will take a look at this provision of the law, pag titinan yung prohibited acts and persons liable, hindi yan nagkakalayo doon sa provision po ng 1405 on peso deposits, no? Any person or government official who or any government bureau or office that examines, inquires, or looks into a foreign currency deposit, dinagdag yung foreign dito, without the written permission of the depositor. Any official or employee of a banking institution who makes a disclosure concerning foreign currency deposits to another in any instance not allowed by law. Okay? So, the same Prohibited Act, only that the subject matter now is yung foreign currency deposit, yun yung protected. Okay? Pero, ang stark na kakaiba po dito, although may parang parehas yung Prohibited Act at persons liable, ay how 6426 only provided for a very limited or few exceptions to the general rule. Ito yung nakayalo dito, no? Okay, so let me just explain it here. Okay, kung sa 1405, ito'y apat, binigay mismo ng batas na exception to the general rule. Sa FCDA, ang binigay lang po na exception to the general rule ay itong number 1. Hindi mo makikita si number 2, number 3, number 4. Yan pa explanation ng slide na ito. Okay, learn to distinguish 6426 with 1405. Ito, mas may, konti lang, nag-iisa lang nga actually exception to the general rule pag yung mismong batas yung titingnan natin. Okay? Pero again, is this enumeration limited only to this? Okay. Are there other exceptions under other laws? Oo naman po. Okay? Pero nabawasan din. Okay? Kasi hindi sakop na anti-graft. Okay? Ano pa nakalagay dito? Okay. Sa AMLA din. Sa AMLA parang nakalagay doon nasa peso deposit lang. Kaya yan, meron yan, red dyan. Pero NIRC, pati foreign currency deposits. Pag-uusapan natin si AMLA, pag ang usapin ay covered as suspicious transactions covered. Yan po yan. But let me just take a look at number 7. Pero I think this was overturned by jurisprudence. Okay. So, ano to? AMLA's inquiry or examination. Balikan natin ulit. Part 2. Okay. Of any deposit or investment with any banking institution or non-bank financial institution, upon order of any competent court, hindi basta-basta, there should be an order of a competent court in cases of violation of the law. When it has been established that there is probable cause, may rason para magpursige yung kaso, that the deposits or investments involved are in any way related to a money laundering offense. It is related to a money laundering offense. Okay? Okay, let's have an exercise. Okay, let's determine what law to apply as we try or attempt to answer the question raised before this slide. Okay, so tingnan mo natin yung ni-raise na question. Is the bank's refusal justified? Okay, so D invested his money in securities issued by the Philippine government through his bank. Okay, with this first statement alone, ano kaya ang iisipin natin? 1405 o 6426? Foreign currency deposit accounts or peso deposit accounts? And the rest and the others to which that particular law extends to. May clue ka kaagad dito, no? Pero pwedeng mapapaisip ka din kasi bakit binanggit dito, Secrecy of Bank Deposits Law. Okay, will the mention of Secrecy of Bank Deposits Law tell you that you are supposed to think of FCDA, foreign currency? Hindi rin, no? So, SBDL is the general law, okay? And it may be referring actually to 1405 and do not, again, misapply FCDA. This is not a question of FCDA, but a question of 1405. Very clear dito, nakalagay. Deposited in securities issued by Philippine government, no? So, Philippine government through its bank. Subsequently, BIR asked his bank to disclose his investment. The bank refused. And the reason cited by the bank is that it should be maintained yung absolute confidentiality under 1405. Okay. May karapatan ba? Sakop ba ito ng isang exception? BIR? Okay, tingnan natin. Suggested answer. The bank's refusal is justified. Under the law, investment in bonds issued by the Philippine government are absolutely confidential and may not be examined, inquired, or looked into by any person. Okay, government official, bureau or office, so BIR, save for the exceptions provided for under the law. In this case, none of the exceptions apply. Okay, totoo nga naman, kasi si BIR wala nang sinabi doon anong kadahilanan. Pag sinabi doon sana sa set of facts natin, yun na simply presume na dahil BIR ang gumagawa na ng request ay because it fell under the 3. Okay, situations allowed under the NIRC. Eh wala nga minention sa set of facts natin. So we don't extend, okay, that interpretation. Remember our rules of interpretation sa batas. Whenever we are claiming for an exception, the burden lies on the claimant. to provide all the conditions exist for that exception to apply. Very specific yung facts natin. May mga kulang, may mga butas. Okay? Kaya hindi natin kailangan i-fill in yun para lang sabihin na this particular problem falls under the exception to the general rule. No, no, no. Okay? That's not the way to do so. Okay? So, general rule lang po dapat i-apply natin sa set of facts natin to come up with this suggested answer. Problem 2, should the bank comply with the order? What order? Okay, the bank receive an order of garnishment. Order of garnishment about a client's peso. An order of garnishment about a client's dollar deposits. Very tricky. Very tricky itong problem number 2. Kasi hindi lang peso accounts, pati daw po dollar deposit accounts. Order of garnishment. Okay? Saang batas? Sa 1405 at sa 6426, may exception po doon sa mga garnishment. Yan. Yan yung trick ng problem number 2 na to. Ang answer natin, you need to qualify. The bank should comply with the order of garnishment over a client's peso deposit because there is nothing in 1405 that places bank deposits beyond the reach of the judgment creditor. It should, in case, however, of the dollar account as deposit, this is the foreign currency deposit accounts, the bank should not comply with the order of garnishment kahit na order man yan na coming sa court kasi malamang magkakamali din ng court, no? Hindi yan perfecto. Because under RA 6426, dahil alam ni bank ang kanyang batas, alam niya na under 6426, ang mga dollar accounts are hindi exempted sa garnishment, are exempt from garnishment order. Yan. This is an additional benefit or privilege why people are encouraged to actually open foreign currency deposit accounts. So bukod dun sa tax exemptions, ito din, exemption from garnishment, exemption from execution, exemption from attachment. Yan, yung mga additional benefits po under 6426. Okay, so there is a need to qualify your answer. Or barred from examining or looking into foreign currency deposit accounts. Okay. Any person, government, office, bureau, or any other public or private entity, any official or employee of a banking institution, similar to 1405. Further exceptions, ito yung kanina sinasabi natin, exempted from attachment, exempted from garnishment, or any other order or process of court, legislative body, so Kongreso, government agency, executive, or administrative body whatsoever. Okay? So this is a thing that you see in 6426 that you do not see in 1405. Pag ang uusapan natin ay 1405, di ba? Kasi sa peso deposit accounts, they are not exempted from garnishment. Ano po ba, ma'am, yung garnishment? It happens, so order to ng court, no? It is done to inform the court whether defendant has a deposit in a bank. So, if a bank or a banking institution receives an order of garnishment, aside from to separate that particular account, okay, to hold it in trust for the judgment creditor, kasi natalo si judgment debtor po ay yung ating depositor sa bangko. Okay? Ang una mo nang gagawin ng korte ay tatanungin kung talaga bang mayroong bank deposit itong si judgment debtor sa inyong mga bangko. At kung malalaman talaga na meron ng order, susunod na order na sasabihin na wag niyo po muna niyang i-release kasi natalo po si judgment debtor sa isang kaso at in favor po dapat yan, nakalaan yan para doon sa judgment creditor na nanalo doon sa kaso laban sa inyong depositor. Okay? Yan po yan. But then again, this is not true when we talk about FCDA 6426, no? Kasi mismo batas na nagsasabi na exempted from garnishment. Anyway, when it is not exempted from garnishment, the garnishment of bank deposit does not violate the law. The prohibition against examination does not preclude its being garnished for satisfaction of judgment. The disclosure is purely incidental to the execution process, and it was not the intention of the legislature to place bank deposits beyond the reach of judgment creditor. Okay, yan yung isang jurisprudential holding in a particular case. While that is true, Pero dahil meron nga tayong mismong batas na nagsasabi na pag foreign currency deposits ang pinag-uusapan na exempted from garnishment, okay? Pag ang subject matter po ng garnishment inquiry ay foreign currency deposit, ay sandali, may karapatan po yung bangko na magsabi na hindi po dapat namin gagawin ito. Okay? Yan, ang sinasabi sa 6426. We apply Section 8 of the General Rule. For General Rule, in this case, which is 6426, it provides there that foreign currency deposits shall be exempt from attachment, garnishment, or any other order or process of any court, legislative body, government agency, or any administrative body whatsoever. Okay, ito yung slide natin kanina on the matter. Yan. So again, pay close attention. Anong deposit account ba ang tinatanong? Anong deposit account ba ang sinusubukang i-garnish? Yan. Okay, good. Exception to the general rule, let us take a look at this from jurisprudence on grounds of equity. In this particular 1997 case of Salvacion versus Central Bank of the Philippines, the Supreme Court ruled that the application of Section 8 of Republic Act 6426 depends on the extent of its justice. Okay? Kahit na sinasabi doon sa Section 8 na exempted from garnishment, pero on grounds of equity, dahil po sa particular facts ng kasong ito, okay, the garnishment of a foreign currency deposit should be allowed to prevent injustice and for equitable grounds. Otherwise, it would negate the provision of the new civil code, okay, which provides that in case of doubt in the interpretation or application of the laws, it is presumed that the lawmaking body intended right and justice to prevail. Okay, ano po ba yung nangyari sa Salvacion versus Central Bank of the Philippines? Okay, so the accused was actually convicted. Okay, ang victim po niya dito ay isang Pilipino. Okay, na of course, okay, kung hindi natin kung papayagan natin na exempted from garnishment yung award that is supposed to be meant for the victim, the Filipino victim, ay hindi makuha ng Filipino victim dahil sa special law na ito na nagsasabing exempted from garnishment, paano naman po yung karapatan ng kawawang Pilipinong biktima ng krimen na ginawa ng isa pong nagmamay-ari ng foreign currency deposit sa Pilipinas. Okay? So, technically, the accused who was found guilty here is what? Deposited. Ang deposit niya po ay foreign currency accounts, deposit accounts. Again, the exception is on grounds of equity. So, who has the burden of proving that it should fall under the exception? Okay, it will be the person or alleging that it should be exempted. Okay, so in this particular situation, in this particular case, it was actually what? Okay, yung nanalo pong biktima para ma-enforce po yung judgment in favor of that particular victim. Okay. Yun lang po ba ang secrecy of bank deposits laws in the Philippines natin? Hindi pa po. Kanina po sa overview natin, meron tayong 6848. This 1990 legislation on your deposit accounts with Islamic banks. Okay? Kakaiba to kasi pag-aaralan ninyo yung mga iba't ibang klase ng bangko sa Pilipinas. Okay? Under the Islamic banks law, okay, particularly for this sector of our society, iba kasi yung kanilang paniniwala sa banking, iba yung kanilang kultura sa pagbabangko. Ang kanilang pagbabangko po ay hindi po nag-earn ng interest, okay? But it's actually there to help each out in the community. So, whether it is peso deposit or whether it's foreign currency, basta sa Islamic banks ka nagbangko at dahil miyembro ka, hindi naman basta-basta pwede pong pumasok dito sa mga Islamic banks ng kanilang samahan. Then, what applies is 6848. Confidential? Yes, it's also confidential, absolutely confidential. And these are the exceptions that are stated or expressed under the law itself. Okay? So, inspection by bank's auditor, written permission of the depositor, hindi ito nawawala, no? Okay, when it is the subject matter of litigation, is the money invested or deposited with the Islamic bank. So, may tatlo na provided for under the law. Who are barred from examining or looking into deposits with Islamic banks. Any person ito? May binawas po dito, no? To end part 3 of this particular portion on banking laws, this is not to end. So we still have unclaimed balances act. Anyway, let's take a look at your MCQs. No? Your MCQs po ninyo, which were part of your handout. Okay, these are the particular questions that are related to the topic on secrecy of bank deposits. Okay, so I'm giving it time as it is running here to take a look at those questions. Check it out. Malamang nasagot niyo na po yan. Tingnan niyo kung tama yung sagot ninyo. Okay. So you have there yung first exercise natin, yung true or false, items 6, 7, and number 21. Then, of course, doon sa ating next exercise on multiple choice questions, items 17, 18, and 20. Okay? Paki-ready po yung mga kasagutan ninyo at paki-reconcile po sa mga suggested answer na aking ibibigay naman. So, I have my copy here. And I have my suggested answer. So, let us reconcile kung tama po yung mga sagot ninyo sa katanungang binigay ko. Anyway, on the matter of secrecy of bank deposits, I actually found the slides, okay, which I added, also reinforce the items or the notes that I gave you on pages 7 to 11 of your banking law handout. Okay? I'm not that particular person that would also discuss it as it appears in your notes. Okay? So that's your handout is another, okay, another material, review material that you have. And of course, my video will be another review material. Okay, time is up. Ano pa yung sagot sa mga items na ito? Tingnan natin. Tingnan natin. Okay, for true or false number 6 and true or false statement number 7. For number 21, ito po yung mga suggested answer natin. Malamang tatanungin ninyo, ma'am, bakit false po yung statement number 7? Tingnan ko po. Okay, this is okay, sabi lang. Sabi number 7, the statement din. Only an official or employee of a bank or an independent auditor hired by a bank to conduct regular audit may be held liable for violation of bank secrecy law. Of course, you've seen in the discussion, both in the handouts and in our video presentation, that hindi lang po naman sila ang pwedeng mag-commit. Okay, so who may be persons liable under the law? Hindi po, okay, lang limited sa mga taong na-mention sa statement number 7. So obviously, that's a false statement. Okay? The first statement mentioned here is number 6. True po yan. Tama. Foreign currency deposits may not be garnished. So exemption from garnishment unless it's made by a transient or a tourist. Tama din po ito. Okay? So sa kaso natin sa Salvacion, it was made actually by a tourist. Okay. Ito yan. And let's take a look at number 21 statement, which is also a false statement. Sabi doon, foreign currency deposits are excluded from the protection of bank secrecy law. No, we have a special law itself that recognizes the protection that we give to foreign currency deposit accounts. Yes? So MCQ number 17, ang suggested answer po natin dyan ay letter D. Okay, so what is number 17? It talks about, tabo na po ng aking mata, pasensya na po. Which of the following are covered by the bank secrecy law? Are covered. Okay? So again, limiting it to A, only demand deposits is not correct. So both B and C, so dapat po both B and C po yun, no? So D dapat po yan. So typo error po yung nakalagay doon na sa D ay B and D. Dapat yan sa D, B, and C. Pakicheck na lang po yung inyong handout. Typo error po yan. Suggested answer is D. Okay? So number 18, anong tanatanong? In all of the following cases, the deposits may be examined, inquired, or looked into by any person, government official, bureau, or office. Choose the exception. Okay, so ano yung kasama natin sa exception? So, defective yung ating katanungan, no? Okay. Yan. when permitted. So this is allowed under the law itself. In cases of impeachment, 1405, when the depositor is a public official, in cases where the money deposited or invested is the subject matter of the litigation. And come to think of it, although, which is not one of the exception dapat, yung correction, which is not one of the exception po yung corrections in number 18 question natin. To give us the suggested answer there of letter C. Because you don't see letter C when the depositor is a public official in the exceptions provided under 1405. Okay, let me just make it myself clear. Dapat po, kulang kasi yung question dyan. Okay, choose the exception to the, choose which does not belong to the exception. Okay, that should have been the question here. Okay, kaya po mayroon question mark po sa aking handout. And sa number 20, ano to, MCQ, number 20, ano sabi dyan? The suggested answer is B. Okay, this was the particular slide that I asked, that I called your attention to a while back, no? Ano po yung imposable penalty for violation of 1405? The answer there is B. Yan. Another set of questions. Pakitingnan niyo po kung ano yung sagot ninyo sa mga ito. Oh, naulit na naman sa 20 dito. Anyway, sige. Please take a look at your suggested answers first. Okay. Okay, anyways. 29. We still have less than a minute. One, two, three, four. Apat na MCQ po to, no? So, why 2 minutes? So, ideally, 30 seconds per item. Gaano na ba kayo kabilis magbasa? At habang nagbabasa, ay napaprocess nyo na po yung inyong kasagutan. And 3, 2, 1. Okay. These are the suggested answer. 21 po pala ito, hindi 20. Sorry for my typo in the first slide. So for 19, suggested answer is B. Okay. Yan po yung sagot dyan. In the regular course of audit with conditions, we have seen. 21. Okay, this should have been 21 a while back, hindi 20, no? Kaya ako nagtaka, bakit 20 ulit? For number 20, the suggested answer is A. Okay, A po yung sagot doon. For number 22, suggested answer is, again, letter A. Pag investigation lang po, hindi po tama, hindi po sapat. Okay. So, already within the court dapat yan. Yung sasabihin niyo, but impeachment proceeding is still a proceeding. So, mga preliminary stages pa lang po kasi ito. The suggested answer there is letter A po sa 22. 23, suggested answer is letter C po, which is an exception in the secrecy of bank deposits, 1405, but not an exception to 6426. Okay, cases of impeachment, letter C po yan. Item number 29. Anong tinatanong sa 29? Okay. Same rules apply po. Letter A po ang sagot dyan. Next set of Secrecy of bank deposits MCQs for answering. Ito po. Bigyan na natin yung kasagutan. For 31, 32, 33, 46, and 28, these are the suggested answers. Please take note of the suggested answers and review why they are the suggested answer. Okay. 31, 32, 33, 46, and 28 are also on the matter of secrecy of bank deposits. So, ang tip dito, titinan nyo, ano ba? 1405 ba to? 6426 ba to? O combination ng dalawa? So, technically, wala pa naman po nagbibigay ng katanungan mula sa Islamic banks, no? Pero just in case, di ba? Malay nyo, bago, alam nyo, na mas tatlo naman doon yung exceptions in general rule. But they may not have been provided in other provisions of the law. This is the last batch of multiple choice questions for secrecy of bank deposits. 34, 35, 37, 38, and 89. I'm giving it time to take a look at the problems. Yan. $35. I barely see my dollar account, foreign currency, Okay, number 37 at number 38. Medyo tricky to, no? The following are the exception to the secrecy, except, no, very deceiving, no? Ano dyan ang hindi exception? So A is not the answer. B is not the answer. You may be torn between C and D. Sagot po sa 37 supposed to be D. 38. In-camera inspection, not allowed. Letter D. DD. So, suggested answers natin. This one. Okay. So, paki-input na lang po dyan sa 37 at 38. DD. B-A-D-D-B. Okay? B-A-D-D-B. B-A-D-D-B. Meron pa yung din nasama? Have we answered 46? I'm so sure if we have already included 46 in our slides, but the answer for 46 is letter B, boy. Okay, under 1405, the following instruments are considered absolutely confidential in nature, except, ano pa ang hindi kasama? Money market placement, letter B. Okay? Paki-include na lang po yan. Okay, let's now take a look at another, the last one sa banking laws natin.